In this lesson, we're going to take a look at a couple different cabinets that are actually stock cabinets, and we're going to talk about some of the features that are important to know, both in terms of dimensions and styles and just things that you're going to need to think about and be aware of as we start to build your own kitchen cabinets. So the first big thing I want to point out is the face frame thing here. So we have two different cabinets. They're both 18 inches wide, and one is from IKEA. So this is the cheapest IKEA 18-inch I could find, and there's a reason for that. I'll go into it in a bit. But this is a standard 18-inch IKEA cabinet, and this cabinet over here is a stock cabinet from Lowe's. And I think the IKEA cabinet cost me around 140 bucks or something, and this Lowe's cabinet cost around 85. The IKEA cabinet is pretty much ready to go. It's got lacquer on it. The Lowe's cabinet is ready to finish, so it's cheaper because you have to put some work into it. It needs to be sanded and all that stuff. So why am I showing you these two? The reason is the IKEA cabinet is a European style cabinet. Okay, naturally they're from Sweden, right? And the Lowe's cabinet here, and I forget the OEM. It's not actually made by Lowe's. Is an American, what I'd call an American style cabinet. So the difference is one has a face frame and one doesn't. So if it's not obvious to you what the difference between the two of them is, and I know there's a height difference right now, and that's simply because this particular cabinet, I didn't adjust the legs up. Okay, I just put them on. But a face frame essentially is a frame of wood that the doors, okay, so this door closes into, as well as the drawer. It literally a frame of wood that sits on the face of the cabinet. Okay, the European style cabinets don't have that, or they're also called frameless cabinets. Okay, so if we were to open this door, and you can see the difference between the two of them, this one really just has the plywood edging here. So this is really just the sides of the box, the cabinet box. And this one has a frame and then the box. So we're going to be building different versions of these. Actually, we'll be building our own frameless as well as our face frame. I've principally built, my first kitchen, I built a American style because I kind of like the look of it. But if you want to build a European style cabinet, you can do that too. So really, it's just the difference of whether or not it has this face frame on it. So this face frame is generally, I would say almost always, a hardwood species, okay? Or it could be, at least it's a solid wood. In this case, this is oak. So this wood is really designed to be stained and then polyurethane on it. It's assembled, the face frame's assembled. We'll get into some joints in the next section, but for now, we really just want to know the difference between, if you're looking at a cabinet, how can you tell? Well, European style cabinets like this one are all doors and drawer fronts. So if you're looking at this thing, what's the difference? Well, obviously I told you there's a frame here, but there's no obvious frame here. So it's literally just the drawer and then the door. Where on this cabinet here, you can see the drawer. There's wood around the top. There's wood between the door, and below it, there's a space of wood visible all the way around the door and the drawer front. Where the European cabinet, again, it's just all door and drawer. So you tend to see these more in the European style. I think it's in a little more urban areas. It tends to be a little more modern. Again, all the IKEA cabinets are this European style. You can't get any IKEA cabinets with a face frame that I'm aware of. If you're looking at pictures of kitchens in Europe, you tend to see more of this frameless look to it. You can really get a high-end kitchen with either style. It doesn't mean you have to do one or the other. I've seen some really nice high-end looking kitchens that have that frameless look, and again, the same thing with those. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some actual cabinets and discuss the critical dimensions you need to know, and we'll start with kitchen cabinets. So what we have here is a side view of the base kitchen cabinet I built for this course, and it's stained cherry. And so the key takeaways from here are the height of base cabinets. The height of base cabinets from the floor to the upper edge of the side or the top of the face frame over here is going to be 34 and a half inches. It's always going to be 34 and a half inches for base cabinets. This allows you to place a 1 inch or 1.5 inch thick countertop on top of the base cabinet, and it brings you to about 36 inches. So 34 and a half inches, committed to memory, you're going to need to know it. We'll see this again, but for now, just you need to know where that came from. And this is just a comfortable working height. This is just a convention in kitchen cabinet construction. So 34 and a half inches. And again, this top edge here is all flush. So if you're looking at this face frame and the top of this sideboard, it's all one level piece. If you had this face frame sitting too high, then your countertop would be crooked on here. All right, so the next critical dimension you need to know is the depth of these base cabinets. And it's 24 inches. And again, it's always 24 inches, or it's nearly always 24 inches. But for your base cabinets that aren't on islands, that are against a wall, 24 inches is what you need to know. And that is from the back edge of the cabinet all the way to the front of the face frame. And if you're working with frameless cabinets, like we just discussed, and that's what you're building, then this 24 inches is from the back edge to the front edge of that one-piece side board, or that side piece of plywood or particle board, since you don't have a face frame. But either way, front to back, 24 inches. It doesn't include doors, so this particular cabinet has inset doors, and so they're even with this face frame. But if I had overlay doors, they'd be sitting out in front of this 24 inches, and we still wouldn't include that in our calculation. So it's 24 inches from the front to the back of the cabinet, regardless of where the doors are. The next little info you need to know is the toe kick, and it's 3.5 inches up and 3.5 inches in. And this is a convention you can mess around with if you want. If you have much longer feet and you find that you want something more comfortable, this isn't like more of an ergonomic thing. So as your feet sit under the cabinet, you can lean over the sink and work comfortably. But this is generally what we see. This is what the kitchen cabinets in my house have, and this is what I built before. But again, if you want to make this a little deeper, you're welcome to do that. But this is the convention. Next, we'll go to the upper cabinets, and the only real thing you need to know for the depth is it's going to be 12 inches from front to back. Again, same policy as the lower cabinets. You can make this deeper if you'd like. If you have upper cabinets that are going to hold a certain oversized plate and you need a little more than 12 inches, you're welcome to do that. Just know that 12 inches is the standard depth. For upper cabinet heights, there are 3 primary heights you tend to see, and that's from the top of the cabinet to the bottom of the cabinet, and that's 30 inches, 36 inches, or 42 inches. If you want to deviate from this, you can do that as well. If you want to take this from all the way up to the ceiling and you have 9 or 10 foot ceilings, you can certainly bump these numbers up to whatever you want to do. So the other dimension that I don't have written on here, but you do need to know, is width. So we've talked about really the cabinet depths here. So and we're talking about the board width. So if I cut this board, it's 24 inches wide or 34.5 inches long. But the actual width of the cabinet, when you're looking at it at the front, they're going to be in intervals of 3. And you want to try to stick to intervals of 3 as much as possible for conventionality's sake. So this particular upper cabinet, I want to say, is 15 inches off the top of my head. I don't remember, but it's 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30 inches. You want to kind of stick with that, and you want to use these intervals of 3 in as many locations as you can actually. So if you have an irregular size wall where you can't quite get through a one particular cabinet with an interval of 3, let's say you have 2 15s and then the remaining gap is 14 inches, well, you can either make a 14-inch one cabinet 14 inches, or you could make all 3 of them custom size. But the best practice in that case would be to make the 215 and make that last either a 14 or make a 12 and put a 2-inch filler strip in. But that's what you need to know. Again, heights 30, 36, 42 for uppers with the depth of 12. And again, the widths being intervals of 3. The smallest I've seen these upper cabinets or base cabinets in terms of width across is probably about 9 inches, maybe 12 inches. And then for your base cabinets, again, the height 34.5, depth 24 inches, and then your 3.5-inch toe kick. So there's 2 ways to incorporate the toe kick, and then correspondingly 2 ways to build the cabinets. So this IKEA cabinet has little leg stands, and this American style cabinet is a one solid piece of particle board with the notch cut out. So if you decide to do a cabinet with a solid side and notch the piece out, well, really the only difference is that's a bigger piece of plywood or particle board or whatever you're using. If you do something where you're just adding the legs later, then it's a smaller piece. But you have to figure out then what are you going to do for the legs. And so really that's it. Do you want to maybe spend a little more money on material? So if you're building one cabinet, maybe it doesn't make a difference. If you're building an entire room full of cabinets and you're building 15, 12 cabinets, something like that, then this extra 3.5 inches of material that you add actually could mean more sheets of plywood, and more sheets of plywood's more money, right? So, but once you attach it and you cut your notch out, you're pretty much done. All you got to do is worry about it at installation and leveling and shimming and all that. In addition to feet, you can actually build a 2x4 platform, and you could frame out a section that would be equal to the footprint of the base cabinet minus the toe kick, and you could build this 2x4 frame and interconnect it to the wall on the floor and level it all off. And then you just drop a bunch of these cabinets that don't have the toe kick, and the toe kick is pretty much built in. And then you put a piece of wood on the front to hide it, to hide the 2x4 edge, and you'd either put a long piece of panel on the very end, or even just have the toe kick on the side as well. So those are a couple ways we could approach it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's really, what do you want to do? Do you want to build a platform and drop it on there? Do you want to work with these legs? IKEA is not the only one that carries these, by the way. There's also a couple different manufacturers, and I'll put this in the show notes, where you can actually have some plastic legs that accepts very easily a panel on the front here to make it easier for you. Or do you want to do something where you do it once and you're done with it? My previous kitchen, the kitchen I built, the first one, I actually did a combination of, most of them were like that. They were one piece with the notch cut out. But I did have 1 or 2 where I actually just used the legs too. So it's whatever you feel like doing, less material, more material. That's really the only difference. All right, since we just discussed some dimensions of kitchen cabinets, I do want to mention dimensions of built-ins. And the critical thing you need to know about built-ins is there's really no conventionality. You can kind of use whatever dimensions you want to do. And let's take my home office here, for example. These built-ins we made ourselves from, we're going to use the very same build process in the course that I built these cabinets out of. And so the method applies, again, for kitchen cabinets or built-ins. How you put them together and is the same, but they have some critical differences between the two that I just want to highlight here. Number one being dimensions. So I have, here's a close-up of one of the built-ins, and the lower cabinet, now in a kitchen cabinet, this height would be 36 from floor to the top of the countertop, and that's the same here. So I kept the total top of this 36 inches, but since this is a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, these ended up being around 35 1/4 or 35 inches from floor to ceiling. So I didn't use 34.5 inches for the height of this base cabinet. And from side to side, I did use intervals of 3, and I believe these are about 36 inches wide. And then the depth
The depth of these are 18 inches. So again, not a kitchen cabinet standard at all. So I was kind of free reign here on these pieces. Notice there's also no toe kick. I wrapped them in baseboard, and it gives them a much more built-in look. So that's the critical differences between dimensioning your built-ins and your kitchen cabinets. You still want them to be at a height that is comfortable for you to be using them or working at them. So whereas kitchen cabinets, that's a defined measure, kind of metric or measurement. Whereas for yours, you can do whatever you want. I've seen base cabinets and built-ins be, 48 inches or 60 inches high. So you can do whatever you want. This is a filing cabinet we built in our office, and again, it's short and it's wide and it's got a baseboard wrapped around it. I also have a desk in here between um, between these two built-ins, and I believe it's about 30 inches high. And I got that dimension from a Pottery Barn desk. So I went to Pottery Barn or IKEA's website and kind of looked at what is the common or conventional height for working areas with a seat. That's where I got that dimension. So if you're in doubt at all about where to sort of lift your dimensions from, or especially for non-built-ins, for kitchens, they're going to be set. But for built-ins, if you're trying to figure out what's really the best dimensions for you to use, I would implore you to check out IKEA or Pottery Barn or Restoration Hardware and see what their built-ins and their desks and all that stuff. What are the key dimensions they're using? Because they invested money in ergonomic studies or something of that nature. They already put money into coming up with their dimensions for what works best for most of their customers. And you can basically just take those dimensions and use them yourself. The other nice thing about built-ins, since you're kind of going off the reservation and using whatever dimensions you want, is if you're a taller or shorter individual, you can make your dimensions of your cabinets completely comfortable for you to work at. So if you're 5'2" and a 30-inch high desk isn't appropriate for you, you can make it shorter, and vice versa. If you're 6'5" and you want something where you sit down, your legs aren't going to be rubbing against the bottom of this desktop, then go ahead and use whatever dimensions you feel are appropriate.